Hi there. Today we're taking Amtrak's Adirondack service from Montreal in Quebec to New York City. This is a 10-hour journey and leaves Montreal around 11 a.m. in the morning and arrives in New York City 10 hours later. So it takes all day, so much slower than flying, of course, maybe more pleasant than driving. If you have a minute, please just hit the subscribe button on YouTube. It really helps me out, thank you. So the central station here in Montreal has a wide range of facilities and plenty of places to eat usually. This is a Sunday morning though, and so many of the places are closed. I think during the week it's much busier than this, but there's a good range of shops here. I'm not going to try and pronounce in French, but there's a good range of shops. I guess they cater to commuters during the weekdays. So it is 11 a.m. on a Sunday morning, and understandable that the lunch places aren't open. The breakfast place is, and I bet you they're selling French bread. The bar is also open, which is pretty normal, I guess, for a train station, but not many customers right now. Probably gets busier during the evening. The station itself has 11 island-style platforms, with a platform on each side of the island, and 20 tracks overall. And the station building takes up almost the entire city block. Internally, the station is not huge. This is the full length of the interior concourse. It's only as I'm reviewing the video now that I notice south and west and all the directions painted at the top of the concourse. Would have saved me a bunch of time yesterday. And of course, being a Canadian city, it's connected via underground passages to all the surrounding streets, so there's no need to go outside during the winter. But it's the middle of summer right now, as you can tell by the shorts everyone's wearing, and a lot of Canadians really enjoying the nice weather. Looks like our train, the number 68 for Amtrak, is on time. I have no checked luggage, but if I did, there's a desk here where you can check it in. We just have the little tag to put in our carry-on baggage. There is also the Amtrak service desk here, and it seems to be manned any time there's an Amtrak train leaving. And this is a pet peeve of mine. Why are they weighing luggage to go on a train? I mean, seriously? It does seem like the railways are starting to emulate the airlines, which really is the reason most people travel by train, is so they don't have to deal with airlines. Anyway. Okay, 15 minutes before departure, they start to board.
What city are you going to? New York?
New York?
Plattsburgh? You're going the wrong way.
New York?
Okay, sorry.
Where's Plattsburgh?
A lot of unnecessary confusion there, but anyway, eventually we get aboard. I think I mentioned it before, but it's free seating. So a little bit of jockeying around by different passengers till we all get settled in our seats. It does seem like an unnecessary process and needless rushing at the end to get into our seats, but nevertheless, we're on board the Adirondack from Montreal. to New York Penn Station. Being right at the back, we could hardly even feel the train start to depart. It was so gentle. But then it took ages to get out of the station. And this old carriage is really rattling and rolling. There's so much creaking. Anyway, off we go. This Adirondack service has been really a stop-start over the last few years. It was halted for 3 years for COVID. It started again, and then in June it was halted again because apparently the weather was too hot for the rails on the Canadian side. Very weird. Seems to be running now though. We're heading out through the Montreal suburbs and almost immediately get to the river. I believe this is the Victoria Bridge over the St. Lawrence River. We're really just crawling now. This isn't slowed down, this is actual speed, and maybe it's the heat on the rails, I don't know, but we're going really, really slowly. So a pretty slow and tortuous exit out of Montreal, and once we exit there, there's just the one stop, and then off to the border with New York. So this was filmed in early summer. It's very lush at this time of year. Everything grows very, very quickly. So what happens next is a little bit weird. The train comes up to a level crossing and stops right in the middle of the road for about 10 minutes. And everyone just has to wait and just wait for us to start again. I guess it's something to do with the border formalities, given that it's Rouse's Point. But anyway, incredibly inconvenient for the drivers. After about 10 minutes, we started again, but a huge backlog of traffic had built up. Well, that was weird. We just seemed to stop on the level crossing. About 5 minutes and then we just started up again. We went just a little bit further and stopped again for the border formalities. Going south, you don't need to get off the train. You just stay in your seat. US Border Patrol comes along, asks a few questions, and then you're off again. So I believe on the northbound you have to get off and take your luggage, etc., for Canadian customs, but coming into the US you don't have to get off the train. The cafe was closed all the time we were sitting at the border, so a bit of a queue was built up. The attendant was great. He even put up with that Australian traveller who complained to him about nickel and dime not being written on the coins, as if it's his fault. But anyway, here's our favourite food, a Hebrew National 100% kosher beef hot dog and a cup of coffee. Before you know it, we're at one of our first major stops, which is Plattsburgh, New York. The train heads down the western shore of Lake Champlain. So if you want great views of the lake, sit on the left-hand side of the train, going south. We don't do much of a speed here, 60 miles an hour, so pretty slow. The left side here is the most scenic, but as you get further south, the right side of the train is better. Now, it is free seating. You could actually change seats, although you should ask the conductor, of course. Okay, let's go have a look around. I like those doors. There's a kick button at the bottom of the door, so if you have an armful of things, you just you kick the bottom with your foot and it opens the door. Very practical. The standard single-level Amtrak carriages are used on this route, so 2x2 all the way through with the restroom at the end of the carriage. The bathrooms on these single-level Amtrak carriages are nice and spacious, and if you're challenged mobility-wise, no issues. The crew here have kept this one nice and clean, which is excellent as well. So on the northern end of this route, there's hardly anyone on the train, which is great. But by the time we get closer to New York City, and it's a Sunday, by the time we get closer to New York City, it is crowded, no spare seats at all. Do you see that kick button down the bottom? That's what I was talking about earlier. Very handy. All trains should have that. All this time we've been travelling along Lake Champlain. We're now at Port Henry, which is down to the south end of the lake.
a few short moments for we approach our station stop, Whitehall. There'll be one exit and one exit only for the rear space train.
The further south we go, the better the condition of the track, and so we can go a little faster. Past Port Henry, we are up at around 110 miles an hour, although it's far from smooth, as you can tell. It's getting on dusk, and so we pull into Albany Rensselaer for a change of locomotives. We stop here for about 20 minutes. A good time to stretch your legs and check out all the action. So there's loads of action here for rail fans as they swap out the engines. There's another train, I believe it's the northbound train as well, so they coordinate here at Albany by the looks of it. The stop is actually long enough you could actually leave the platform and go and get something nearby to eat. I didn't, I just stayed on the platform. But the stop is about 15 minutes or so. So locomotives changed, passengers have stretched their legs, and so now we're off on the final leg into New York City. I think we crossed the river at Albany, so now we have the Hudson River on our right hand side, and the sunset is absolutely gorgeous. The Hudson River really is a beautiful part of the world, more so in autumn or fall, but any time of the year it really is just splendid. We make great progress after sunset and head through towns like Yonkers, etc., down straight into Penn Station. It's very fast here, 110 miles an hour most of the way, and we whiz through these stations. It's a long trip at 10 hours, but once you see the George Washington Bridge, you know you're pretty much there. Just a few more minutes to go. We're really slow to a crawl just to get in those last few yards into the station. I think everyone's pretty keen to get off, especially those of us that have been on since Montreal. Have it, a 10-hour trip on the Adirondack from Montreal to New York Penn Station. Please remember to subscribe to my channel and hit like if you appreciate my content. It really helps me out. Thanks a lot.